What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blade Dive, presented by Prenoth. This is part 2 of episode 34, and we're just going to dive right back into it. Episode 34 is sponsored by Mount Bachelor. Super stoked to have their support. And if you're not already following us on social media, do that so you can stay up to date on what's happening, especially during the upcoming season, winter 21-22. I'm going to give Dustin Smith a call quickly. Stay tuned. This is going to be a good conversation on all things that's happening with his ops team. Here we go.
Hello?
Dustin, thanks for taking my call.
Hey, Dan. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks so much for asking. And how are you?
I am doing excellent.
Highly anticipated conversation with Dustin Smith, the senior slopes manager at Mount Bachelor. I'm excited that he's taken again the time to catch up with me and just discuss all things that are job opportunities up at Mount Bachelor under his operations umbrella. So again, terrain parks, alpine grooming, pretty stoked you're taking the time, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome. Like I've talked to you before. Your podcast is a great resource for people who, love to be outside, love to run equipment, and I'm stoked to be here and talk about some opportunities we have at Bachelor.
And that's my first question right out of the gate. What are you hiring for up there at Mount Bachelor under your management?
Yeah, man, right on. We have some terrain park operator positions open. Grooming is looking to finish up their hiring, and we're looking for a few day crew applicants as well to finish off that crew. I've been sequestered, I'd say, to the parks for so long. I'm so entrenched with how that operates, and I know that like the back of my hand. But there's thousands of other acres at the resort that get groomed on a nightly basis, and I'm stoked to work with that team and just continue to put out the best possible product that we can. We're looking for somebody who is willing to become a part of an already established team and continue to grow with our department and your coworkers.
Hey, so with all those open positions up there that you do have, and it's fantastic that they are really associated with an operation umbrella. But if somebody wanted to be a part of the Alpine team or the terrain park team, in your opinion, how do you think that the successful candidate grows at Mount Bachelor?
We're looking for people who want to work where they play at the resort. We're also looking for somebody who is willing to work with an interdepartmental focus. We want to be able to help out all of our fellow coworkers at the resort, whether it's digging a lift out, helping patrol pull a rope line down, or put a rope line up if you have free time. Just making the resort as a whole operate more smooth.
Okay, a couple more things. First of all, what's it like to live in Bend? I got to know that. Your opinion on living in Bend. And then secondly, what's the commute like up to Bachelor from Bend? And maybe how is Bachelor helping out with Park and Ride so that people can get transportation to the mountain?
Well, first of all, Bend is awesome. It's an outdoor recreation mecca, which most people tell you not to tell anybody about it, but it's pretty awesome. The surrounding areas are also sick. Like Redmond's awesome place, Terrebonne's awesome. Where we have a employee shuttle for pretty much every shift. So there's a central parking lot in Bend, and it's a 25-minute, 30-minute bus ride from Bend to Bachelor. If you want to drive yourself, that's great. It's a pretty mellow mountain highway. They do a pretty good job taking care of it. Even in the middle of the night, it's not, if you had to drive yourself up to work, it's not like it's a treacherous drive. But it's awesome that we have this opportunity to get employees to the resort. But at Bachelor, we average 462 inches of snow a year, so it snows. It's a pretty awesome place to live and work, and we work hard to make a bus schedule work for all departments.
Okay, the question everybody wants to know: what is it like to work for you as a manager, and what do you think are your best leadership attributes that maybe separate you and Mount Bachelor from other resorts that are hiring for operator jobs?
Absolutely. Look, we care a lot about the product that we put out, so we're going to hold our operators to a high standard. We're all coming from an operating background, so we understand that high standard doesn't happen overnight, and we want to work with you to get you to where we want you to be as an operator, develop you. We want you to be comfortable talking to management and letting us know what's going on the hill and how can we improve and where are opportunities that we can provide a better product for the guest. I want to be there to be able to coach you when you need help, but I want to give the operators, an end goal and have them work as a team to achieve that end goal we'll be there to help you through every step that you don't really understand, to help you develop as an operator.
Definitely a topic of interest. What type of equipment are your crews operating up there with respect to snowcats?
Yeah, we run a mixed fleet. We've got Tier 4 Bisons, a grip of older 350s, some utility cats that we use for various projects on the mountain. The Parks Department is running all Park Pros. So they've got 4 Park Pros dedicated to their department with a dedicated winch that cuts the half pipe. And we build a 22-foot pipe. So we've got a 22-foot zog with an 18-foot extension that we can put on. So it gives us plenty of opportunity for transition all over the mountain. And then we also just purchased a 13-foot cutter, and we're stoked to be running that on a Park Pro, building some mini pipes, getting some transition out in the parks wherever we can.
Okay, deep question right here. Dustin, what do you think you're doing or your crews are doing to improve upon the already maybe in place operator training to better the experience for the employee as well as the guest and the product that they participate on?
Yeah, we expect all of our skilled operators to spend time with greener operators to help develop those operators when everyone's running on all cylinders and everyone knows what they're supposed to do, you can just get so much more done. And so we encourage all of our experienced operators to spend the time right along, hand off some of that knowledge that they might have that could benefit somebody else who's new to the department. For our experienced operators, primarily in terrain parks, we have had a great relationship with SBT through Powder and Woodward, and those guys typically come out usually around 40 days a season. They're broke down into usually 5-6 days at a time, but we like to use that resource as a continued training, and it's a great opportunity for people to learn new skills from somebody that they may be following on Instagram, or they might love their work, and next thing you know, they're out here in the cat with you, spending a week showing you what they do. So we don't lean into SBT for the Alpine side, but we have a grip of knowledge at Bachelor from operators who've been here for 20 plus years. And we're super fortunate to have that, and stoked to keep that program going forward.
All right, Dustin, I want to take a minute and say thanks again for taking the time to catch up with me on the Blade Dive and talk about you and what you're hiring for at Mount Bachelor. But I think people need to know, where are those jobs located online? Where can they find them? Where can they go apply and talk to you?
I would go www.mountbachelor.com. You'll find all the jobs that we got open. Check it out.
All right, you heard Dustin, and I want to thank him again for taking the time to catch up with me about all things he's got going on. If you're interested in applying for a job at Mount Bachelor, you can do that. He told you the web address. You should go there. That's mtbachelor.com. Check it out. See what he's got going on. Send him an application, and hopefully get a chance to catch up with Dustin. Okay, let's jump right back into this. Episode 34, Rydd, Day Franzen for part 2. And you know the deal. If you're at home right now, grab your favorite drink, kick your feet up, and if you're in the machine anywhere in the world, turn up the volume.
Go ahead and give it the juice. Already.
I love where we're going with all this. I do have one more question from Joe, believe it or not, that we should jump into.
Yep.
So let's hit that one. And here we go. Another question from Joe Genovese.
So, Day, another question for you. We both came from Mammoth Mountain Resort, which is a tiny 76-acre hill in Virginia. But there's been a lot of success stories, a lot of talent that's come out of there. With the Jeremy Klein, the Cody Bone, the Geeson twins, yourself, and who knows, Casey Gandy's done great things in the industry. What do you think it is about that place that sparked a lot of people to go on and do good things from a very, very tiny hill in the middle of nowhere, Virginia?
Yeah, I've asked myself that a lot. And the best I can come up with is that mountain was ahead of its time for back then. I mean, I think the first park there was in 92 or something. And this is Virginia. This isn't Stratton. This isn't, and I think the environment that was created there for the whole mountain was very progressive, especially for back then. And those parks help breed those guys like that, the Cody Bones and the other kids that have come out of there. I mean, it was just a great progressive scene, and the mountain supported it back then, which was all really thanks to this one dude that we're all friends with from back then. We were kind of all the Groms, and he was the older guy. And he was like, I think Joe spoke about him a little bit, but it's Aaron Hawkins, and he kind of pushed those early years, and we were all just Groms looking at him going, he's the coolest dude on the planet, and we want to be like him. And, and he's a snowboard rep, and he was just connected all over the place. And I think a lot of that first seed came from him and just getting that program going there in those early years. And then the general manager at the time was just an amazing human being, Steve Showalter. He was down for anything as long as we could explain it somewhat intelligently. And it made sense to him. And I've learned that over the years, and you get a certain personality and he's your GM, you've got to figure out what communication works best for him. If he's a numbers guy and he wants to see, okay, 1,000 kids went through the park today and 800 of them stayed there all day, and, whatever statistics you can throw at guys like that is always helpful because they understand that. I've been lucky enough to have some guys like Steve Showalter I just talked about, and like a Steve Cruz at Timberline, or, and those guys are just always got an open ear, man. And they want to hear what you have to say. And that's just a huge quality in a general manager that's tough to find. You just got to know your audience, is my opinion. You figure out what the best route is, and you go that way with it.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's my very first thought. Then they took the words right out of my mouth. You got to know your audience, but like we touched on earlier with generationally, you have to put the time in to get to know and understand your audience. There's an art to talking to your high school girlfriend's mom, and it's the same with going to talk to your general manager. Like,
that was a great analogy.
Yeah, well, seriously, you're either good at that or you're not.
You're the man.
And but you gotta know your audience, and sometimes like our when I was at Casvor, our North American CEO, he's a really proactive guy. We put a great team together with all of us and everything, and I was very fortunate to be a part of it. But I also knew like he was willing to listen to our ideas and stuff. But if he was in a meeting with him and you couldn't keep his attention longer than like 5 minutes, you should just stop talking. Because if you see him looking around the room, or if he asks a question of somebody else that seems a little bit off topic, it's because he's done talking about that right now. So don't get frustrated by that. Understand that and find out what keeps his or her interest, and try to be prepared to present that well. And yeah, like I've talked to you before, like that's a gift. Like Matt Malilly's got that gift, and Day, you've got it too, in a lot of ways. Like you could, like I think you were the one who said that. Like you could sell ketchup packets to kids in white outfits all day long. Like
I don't know if I said that, but there's one.
Yeah,
there's a saying out there like that.
Yeah, like Matt Malilly's really articulate about understanding what he wants and knowing how to present it. And he does all of his research before he presents it. And he doesn't act like a whiny little kid when he talks to me about stuff. Yeah, look, I just really, because I want to. That doesn't go anywhere.
No, it doesn't.
Like you got to present why, and you got to be willing to take a no once in a while too. You can't only go when you need a yes every single time, and You have to take the time to experiment to get to know your audience. And, then always, the biggest key to that is from day one, recognize it's a business.
Yes.
Like it or not, it's a business. You don't get a paycheck if the business doesn't make money.
Yeah.
It's all about money and commitment and stuff. And even if you work for like a nonprofit ski hill, they operate on money, whether it's donated or whatever. Like it all, just like the rest of the world, it all revolves around that. And the quicker you get that in your mind and are able to make that an articulate part of your discussions and your presentations, the faster you will go farther.
Day, I'm sure there are people that probably know this. There's lots of things that are even written about it. But you eventually moved back east, and I think we'll go out of chronological order here and discuss some of the time at Corinthia. But I would be curious to know why that move back east happened. If it was tactical, but if not, then cool. But again, you were kind of teamed up with Elia. And,
Right.
I would have to assume those were pretty big shoes to fill. If not, I want to know how they weren't.
First off, Elia is one of the purest souls on this planet, man. He is just a great dude. And I could go on for another hour about just what a great guy he is. And he never ceases to amaze me. There was nothing tactical about that. It's called you lost all your money and you closed all your businesses, and the biggest drought you've ever seen in your career hits Tahoe, and there's no work for anybody. And I knew Vermont was going to be cold enough to make snow, and I knew he was looking for a guy, and I was desperate to pay some bills, and he was kind enough to hand me the reins to his empire from back there. He had been at Mount Snow since the 90s and created that whole program, in my opinion. Because I honestly expected dude, I've been here for 20 years. I built this. This is how I want it to go, which I totally could have adapted to, but he was more, let's give you the ball and run with it, and was an amazing opportunity. I loved all my time at Corinthia, and the only reason I left was weather related, man. I just, like I said earlier, I'm not a huge fan of the freezing cold, and I think those guys work twice as hard on that coast to put out as good a product as we do on the West Coast. As far as filling his shoes, I don't think anybody could fill those shoes. That man is, he's a wizard at all those things we've talked about on how to know your audience and, get the proper message across. He is that guy, in my opinion. And filling those shoes is truly impossible. But what I tried to do was kind of put those shoes on and keep running with them. Because I knew what a great program they'd created back there, and I just wanted to kind of enhance it kind of from my perspective. And the crew that I had there was unparalleled, man. I haven't had many park crews for those 4 years like I had there. There wasn't a weak link in that chain, man. And then on top of it, anytime I needed help or whatever, Elia's there. It might be in a 600 wheel cat, and he might stack all the 3 biggest tables with it. But it was just a great relationship and a great partnership, and I'm thankful he gave me that opportunity.
Switching gears, and we've already kind of hit this a little bit, Jay, but taking credit for something compared to like the highlight of your career, you've referenced the highlight being able to give back. I want to open that up a little bit more and maybe discuss what it's like doing that in an industry that is often termed competitive. You guys mentioned both, or Jay, I think, mentioned it. It's, taking the interest in this next generation, taking the interest in the time and sticking around to get the manager's job. Used to be there were, 4 or 5 people that were in line competing to do that. Some places may still have that kind of situation with either a succession program or maybe not, but how do you still maintain the pay it forward attitude in the competitive industry that I believe still exists in the snow industry?
I think we just continue on the path that we're on, and it's trying to recognize what people need to motivate them now. Like at Diamond Peak now, we have an amazing crew of guys. Like Tim and Matt do such a great job leading their team. And then the same holds true for my other managers. I'm very blessed that whether it's my patrol director or my lift manager or even my property ops manager, like they're all very qualified people and they all lead well, and they do that. They're successful in that because they take the time to try to get to know the needs of their team, right? And again, we're fortunate because we're a smaller resort that our teams are smaller, so they can be a little more personal and be a little bit more involved in their lives per se to understand what their personal needs might be, whether it's scheduling or even pay or just whatever it is, to sort of feel a little tighter connection with them individually. And we have great people working with us right now. It's just a matter of continuing to do that and letting the cream rise to the top, like always. We just had to do it through a different set of circumstances. And like I said earlier, I don't want anyone to go through what I did before, so I have to be careful about being weirded out by the process these days, because I want it to be better, and it is better. It's just weird because it's better compared to what I had, but it's not me going through it right now. So, I don't know. We just have to keep, for people in positions like mine, we just have to give those beneath us the freedom to be flexible with their employees' needs and stuff. Like I'm a very hands-off leader. I have very strong opinions about things, and I try really hard to keep them to myself. Because one of the biggest things in reflecting on my time coming up and trying to be a proactive leader, one thing I've realized, I never wanted my boss's help ever, right? Unless I needed them to teach me something they knew. I just needed them to say yes to what I wanted.
Yeah.
Right? So I try, I hired the reasons I don't ever need to drive a snowcat ever again. I got Tim Hay and Matt Malilly working for me. Like they do everything. Yeah. And I don't have to ever drive a snowcat ever. I'm fortunate that sometimes they let me come out and play once in a while and ask for, hey, if you got a little time, do you think you can push a little snow over here? And I'm like, oh, that'd be awesome. And I go run a cat for an hour after work or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
but it's their show now, and I just try to provide the opportunities that I wish I had. And most of that is for your boss to get the fuck out of your way. I mean, like,
well, and you trust them, and that's what great managers and employees, that's what you do with them. When you trust them to do the job that they can do, they're happier, you're happier.
We have such a small program and stuff, but it's just they do such an amazing job, and they do such a good job with their team, and it goes back to recognizing the team's needs.
I think I had 60 or 70 day crew at Mountain High in like 2002.
Good God. Wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow.
Well, we'd stay up until like 11 or midnight or something. It was a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. Well, kicking it around further, and I've always enjoyed this question just in passing conversation with people once you get to know them a little bit. And you both have done a shit ton. You've been around, you've paid your dues, done your time. Brands, resorts, photo shoots, name it, you've been a part of it. And you can offer up any kind of advice to anybody, like we've already unpacked a little bit. But knowing what you know now of the industry and of the career within the path that you've chosen, what would you tell the 20-year-old self who's just beginning? If you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself?
I'm gonna go with be nicer and don't burn bridges. Because the early years, man, you get a little recognition and your ego goes, and and you're like, I'm the man, and everybody does it, man, in the park world. If you get anywhere beyond, the first season. And it took me a while to check that and realize how that was hurting me, and I think the good news from the whole scenario is that I've learned from it, and I've tried hard to not repeat that, There's some early relationships that I wish had gone differently in the industry. And a lot of it had to do with they might have been wrong, but also I was just being an egotistical asshole back then, and to look back on it now, it's definitely a regret, but that would be my advice to myself is just don't let it go to your head, man. You're just pushing snow for toys. And just enjoy what you're doing, and don't create enemies because they don't give you the result you want,
I think you got to be able to grow to know the answer to that question. Come out from whatever fog you were living in. To be able to answer. It's a tough question. I think it's a tough one. What do you think, Jay? What would you tell yourself?
Well, I think what I said at the beginning, like relationships are everything, and then like they saying, don't piss people off, don't burn bridges. And I didn't necessarily burn bridges, but I stepped on a lot of toes. And like I said, I spent a whole lot of my life going like, I don't need anybody's help. I got this, And part of that was the shy kid coming out of my shell and finding something I was excelling at, But it's just don't let your pride get in the way at looking for help and stuff. And again, like that's the thing. Like be humble. It's okay to put your hand up and ask for some help. Because teams get way farther than individuals.
Many hands make less work.
Yeah, I mean, like they said it really well, man. We balance each other out so well. It's the same with a good marriage and stuff. My wife and I balance each other out well, and she can call me out on my shit, and I can call her out on her shit when she lets me. But like, but yeah, Day and I balance each other out. I use a good example of that. When we had Kingvale, we just had different perspectives on things, right? Now, I'm more robotic in thinking and more mechanical and stuff. And I remember when we got the first like PA system, Day, when you went and bought speakers and stuff, and you're like, man, I'm going to do this. And you spent a bunch of money on it. And I was like, man, what the fuck? Like in my head, I didn't say it to you, but I was like, what the fuck are you wasting money on speakers for and doing all this, right? And then here comes Saturday, and he's got the Tubin mix on his iPod, and everybody in the Tubin line is dancing the fucking Thriller and bebopping, and I'm like, he's so fucking right, and I never would have done that,
No, and for like $500, we made a lot of people happy.
Yeah. And then we're playing King Diamond and Slayer while people are riding the park midweek, but we had instrumental like Wu-Tang mixes and stuff that would drop in the middle of tubing on a Saturday. Oh yeah. But But it's like that's one like that image is burned into my head. Is that first weekend of the sound system, and the epiphany of how wrong I was, and what a difference it made in the guest experience. You know, like
Yeah.
And I just never ever would have done that if it was up to me. And he was positive, and he was fucking right. You know,
Dude, what a story.
The
That is
crazy
awesome.
thing, Jay, is all I've ever chased is that first park I rode at Mammoth Mountain, dude. Because in 92 or 93, when that thing went off, it had music top to bottom, and it was a surface lift, and it was just the skate park vibe, and it was just, and I'd go to other parks, but it never had that same feel. And I think that was a lot of the success of that place. And really that was my vision for Kingvale, you know, was to recreate that original vibe.
Well, we got to talk about how Robert Plant met John Bonham, and then kind of that hole in the coattail became the carriage that carried somebody. But we got to unpack that. And I think that's what everybody else wants to hear too, amongst all the other things that we've discussed already. But, you know, there have been previous guests, there have been people in passing, there have been so many folks who have asked whether or not either one of you were going to come on the show and be a part of this. But I want to know how the Jersey native and the Virginia Southerner linked up and became the band that now is, and still is, in my opinion, one of the greatest to ever play music in the damn tubing lane. Paint that picture.
That's appreciated. That's appreciated, Parker.
Yeah.
It honestly, didn't we meet the very first time at that job fair, Jay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was literally like, it was my first week of work, and our head guy at the time had to go somewhere. I believe it was a fun weekend somewhere, and he said, "You're going to do the job fair, buddy." And I said, "Okay." And in walks Jay Rydd. And then I proceeded to try to talk him out of working with me, because I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're the slope manager at Diamond Peak. Like, are you crazy? And I was like, I think it pays $11.50 or something like back then, right?
Yeah,
what is something ridiculous?
I talked to you guys in. They pay me like $12.50, I think.
Right. Yeah. Baller.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, you're crazy. What are you doing? Like, and I remember you saying, man, like, look, man, I can't do the things I want to do where I am now. And this program is large enough and big enough that I want to see how they're doing it here. And I want to do it while I'm still young enough to do it. Because remember, we used to always say, well, we'll never be a 30-year-old park builder. And then we'd say, well, we'll never be a 40-year-old park builder.
Yeah.
And you came on, dude, and you moved there with your freaking Dodge Stratus and your single cab Dodge Dakota, and
yep.
And the rest is and really we didn't recognize the what's the word I'm looking for, the not partnership, but the flow between us until that first night, I think, that we really got in cats together. And
yeah, I was there you were there. You started in the summer, and I started in like October. And
yeah,
and I spent like a month running an excavator for Clifford, building like where the gondola is now, and out of the village and stuff. And then they had me plowing the roads and running the snow blowers and making snow. And
I was painting pink rails.
Yeah, so I got hired on to be the graveyard shift leader, but that was actually kind of there wasn't it wasn't clear on whose position was what. That's what I was told when I was hired, and somebody else had been moved aside. And then when we got out in the field, he thought he was my boss, and I was technically supposed to be his boss. I didn't actually care to be in charge like that, but he was sort of lied to. I was sort of lied to. And Day and I hit things off really well. We got along really well together, and we agreed on how things should be set up. But some other people didn't like the way we were doing things, and I don't like to be told what to do, and neither does Day. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Do you remember the sandbox?
yeah, well, dude, don't get me started. But like, so here's the thing, like, we every night I don't know how it was when you were down there, Parker, but we would switch every night. So Graveyard would groom South Park one night, and then Graveyard would groom Main Park the next night. So they got to set up the snow consistently differently each night. And every night that I would groom, because I was still jumping back then and stuff, and I was never great, but I could hit bottom jump in Main Park and ride it confidently. And
Make it
every
look
night
good.
every night I groomed bottom jump and reshaped the takeoff. Every motherfucker's out there jumping it the next day, including me. and every night when swing shift groomed bottom jump, nobody would ride it the next day. And you know, and I got shitty notes left for me that I need to work long shifts, and I'm going home too early, and I need to, you know, I need to do this, and I need if I can leave early, I should crush every takeoff and rebuild it every single night. I'm like, why the fuck would I ruin every takeoff every night?
Yeah.
Right.
And so it ended up when then Day can tell his part of the story, but he was frustrated and he was leaving, and I was like, man, he's the only one I get along with, you know. And I was like, I said to Gershman, I was like, man. It was in front of Clifford, and I was like, my mom lives 3,000 miles away for a reason, dude. Don't leave me shitty notes for everybody else to fucking read.
Oh my
if
God.
you have a problem with me, come talk to me.
Yeah.
You know? But like, I was 30 years old. He was like 32 or 34. Like, we are who we are. And I was like, man, it doesn't jive. It's not going to. You know, like, we are who we are. It doesn't work.
Right.
Like, and I was like, you guys, you got a good program going down here, and it works well with you building it. Like, you can have it your way, man. Like, and I wanted to leave before I had to put on my resume. You know, but
Jay, maybe it's because our expectations of that place were so high at that time too.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Looking back on it.
Yeah, completely. I expected it to be fairy tale land, and every, you know, everything was perfect. And
you still had to put your cape on every night to save the day, bud.
Yeah.
Well, I can say, like, if I didn't ever have the opportunity to work on the snow at Mammoth. I was at June the entire time. So seeing the dynamic of what the two differences were, a very much ever-changing thing. I was literally comparing visually wine to water, but the water was always sweeter over at June. I learned so much over there in a very short period of time. Anyway.
Well, Joe Genovese was at June at the same time as us, because Oren came to Hood and courted me and Joe. Well, actually, Eric wanted Joe and Oren wanted me to come down, and so Joe and I kind of went from Mountain High 2 summers at Hood to Mammoth together, and then he went the June way and I went the Mammoth way, and I missed working with Joe until I found Jay, you know, like, because Joe and I had worked together for a long time, and then, you know, Joe was it was kind of like it was time for student to depart from teacher. You know, he's like, I'm going to do my own thing, and I was like, that's good, man, go do your thing, like, you know. And then when Jay and I linked up, it didn't take long to figure out how well we worked together, and then this whole story's kind of heading towards, that's how we ended up at Heavenly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool at Mammoth too. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it was rad, like we were talking on earlier, like helping people and doing stuff like that. Was the same year, like that was Cooper's first year working in the park there, and Pete's first year. And I remember riding in their cat with them, and them riding in my cat with me, and like it was so rad for me to watch, you know, Cooper go from Mammoth to June and then go to Park City and stuff, and to know that like we helped inspire each other. We had a good time together, and even though it was really short lived, but like, and I remember riding in Pete's cat with him sometimes, and I liked it because Pete had a couple Slayer CDs, and I make put those on while we were in the cat together. And like, so like wasn't crazy bad. I just knew that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And I
Which
wanted
is
to
fair.
be the bigger person. Yeah, and as an adult, you're like, this is not necessarily that it was a mistake, but it just wasn't going to be the right dynamic that I was going to fit into.
Yeah.
And I didn't go there. Yeah, I didn't go there to blow up the program and make it Jay's.
Right. We just didn't fit into the mold at the time. Like it was.
Yeah.
It was the Mammoth way or no way, and we both were okay with that, but we wanted to have a little bit of input.
Well, we were both hired under the intent that we're bringing you in to freshen things up and to make it not the Mammoth way. And then as soon as we started doing that, we got shut down. We set rails, they would get pulled the next night.
Wow.
Right.
And so it's just like, wow.
Well, so
totally 180 degrees from what we're told.
Well, so fast forward and you go to, so you figure out that that's not going to jive. And I mean, there's parts and pieces and bits that I know of the journey over towards Heavenly, but Day left first. Or did you leave together and then
together?
Yeah, and then you landed
Pretty
that
much
gig
together,
at Heavenly. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, even at that stage, I still, early on had some good friends like Chris Perkins and in the industry, and it was literally right as ASC sold to Vale, and kind of that place kind of got the house cleaned out of there. There wasn't a whole lot of the ASC era people left. And Chris was like, well, I know they're looking for somebody, man. I'll put you in touch with somebody. And, and he put me in touch with Casey Bland, and I don't know, I said the right things. But I don't think we started until when did we start, Jay? Like December 19th or something.
Yeah, you started first, and I actually went home back east for Christmas for the first time ever, because I was like, well, if I'm gonna quit now, I'm gonna go home for Christmas. And
right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why you weren't there, as I was getting junior hide through the parking lot on my first day of work. I get met by like a couple pro snowboarders and a couple other local dudes, and they're just like, you shouldn't be here, bro. Like, you're not a local, you can't work here, beat it. And like got a couple shoulder bumps, and and I'm just head down walking to the tram to go up to my office for the first day, and I'm like, this is gonna work out awesome.
I love it here.
But man, in my experience, because I have been the guy who's taken over a lot of programs after they've been kind of established, and there's always someone there that thinks they should have the job. And I'm not saying they shouldn't, but the management decided they thought someone else should have it. And that doesn't mean that I decided that. And I feel for those guys, man. I mean, and I'm specifically I've got a couple stories like that, but Brandon Dodds and Tom Richards, and and those dudes had been promised one thing by ASC, and then ASC ceased to exist, and Vale came in and was like, yeah, no, we do it the Vale way, and we're gonna hire this guy. I mean, it got ugly, man. There was what was it, Jay? They were handing out cards at the top of the park to the public.
Yeah, with like the CEO of Vale at the time or something like that's email and phone number and your name, and saying, because remember it was Brandon's brother, Shitty B, who was doing it, and that's his name, by the way, Brian, but Brandon calls him Shitty B too. But yeah, no, and remember they would just like close the park and go home.
They would
in the middle of the day,
or they'd all go to Nevada side and do whatever.
Yeah, but they would just like split out in the middle of the day, but they would stand up there and hand out cards with your name on it and contact info for Vale Corporate, and be like, if you don't like what's going on, say you want this guy fired, and call and email these people.
Well, the part of the story missed too is that because I think that transition happened like right in the fall. Like one day in September, ASC goes, "Hey, guess what? Vail owns it now," and those guys had hired the whole park crew for the season. So literally anyone that had been there before or had any attachment to those guys wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I can't even. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Everywhere we went, like anytime we went out in South Lake, people were trying to start shit with us. It was pretty fucking annoying.
Yeah, that was a rough transition. One of the rougher ones.
Was there ever a point where you were that over it, you wanted to just say fuck it and move on from something else, or did you see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel? You were like, this is all good, we got this.
I think that just from our time, yeah, I think from our time together, Parker, you realized that Jay and I aren't the kind of guys that would walk away from that.
No, you'd walk away from the Mammoth thing rather, but not something like Heavenly. Yeah.
Well, and just for the record, that's the only time I've ever left a resort in a season ever.
Wow.
And it just wasn't a fit. And that, and the Heavenly times were great, man. They were heavenly.
And yeah, to finish on the Mammoth thing, dude, yeah, like I was like, if I leave now, I don't have to ever tell anyone I worked here.
Yeah.
I hopefully maybe gave those guys a little bit of inspiration, but I had nothing to do with the builder that Pete turned into be or Cooper and everything he achieved and stuff like that. I think they're good people and that they developed their skills on their own, and good for them. And they worked in a great program, and that program worked for. I butted heads with Gershner, but he did a great job for that program, and he and Oren turned it into something huge that continues to this day. Grew people like TJ and stuff out of there, and like so.
The happy ending to the whole story is that was it the end of that season, Jay? That by the end of like that first season or the second start, we were like good friends and had converted Brandon and Tom. And we went on, the four of us, to do some amazing stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And
so,
to this day, we're all great friends. I don't see Brandon that often and talk to him that much, but we're still. He and I traveled the country installing snowmaking pipe together for a long ass time.
Yeah,
and we've done some gnarly shit together in excavators, and Tom and I see each other all the time, and our wives are best friends, And our kids, he's got two little girls that are similar age to mine, and we're still super close with those guys, and they fucking hated us.
Yeah, but that's like a prime example of being able to kind of see the bigger picture,
Yeah.
Eventually, at least.
I'd always rather convert somebody into a good employee and something like in that kind of situation than lose them. Because I recognize those guys had a lot of skills and a lot of experience, and I put myself in their shoes, and I felt bad for them. I was like, you guys got promised the keys to the kingdom, and then they just got ripped out of your hand, and I showed up, and I felt for them. So I wanted them to stay and succeed with the program, because my only goal was to make the program the best I could,
Yeah, the funny thing, Parker, about Day and I's relationship with other people and coworkers is when they first meet us, Day's the one everybody thinks they like me better, and Day's kind of a bitter or kind of a
asshole.
Kind of an asshole, but just well, just like you say things a little bit too edgy and you piss them off, and they don't like you, but they like me.
He's like Robert Plant. He's wearing skinny jeans and no shirt and rocking his mustache.
But in the end, he gives everybody 2 and 3 chances to fuck him over, and everybody gets one chance with me, and they hate me in the end.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we totally usually flip flop by the end.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. All right, I think it's that time. We got to jump into the push road question of the day. Here we go.
The push road question of the day.
It's my favorite part of the show. It is. I think it will forever be my favorite part of the show because I love the Push Road questions. This week's Push Road questions are brought to us by Mount Bachelor. They're the sponsor for episode 34. Stoked to have their support. If you're looking for a job at a resort, Bachelor's the spot. You can find all the operations jobs that they have available, including snowcat operator jobs, terrain park jobs, at their website. Just head on over to mtbachelor.com. Send Dustin Smith an application. But we've got a lot of people that have wanted to weigh in on this episode, and it was very difficult to kind of whittle things down to the few that we can have contribute and be fair to everybody else that's been on the show before. But Jimmy Tomer has your Push Road question, and Tomer wants to know, is Durst still alive?
Oh, God bless Jimmy Tomer. You know he's got South Lake gold, right? That's a bronze medal at the X Games, bud.
Yeah.
He's the man. Jimmy Tomer is the man.
Tomer's awesome.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Durst is the only member of the original Kingvale crew that we have not mended bridges. And I don't know if it's me that hasn't mended them or him or both of us, or I know he's still alive and I still care about the dude and I hope he's awesome. I get bits and pieces from his brother Dead Mike, and Joe Genovese sees him every once in a while, so I know he's still out there breathing, which is good to hear.
Yeah, last time I got to see him when we did Super Park at Seven Springs, and I was there for Pistenbully.
Yeah.
He showed up for that, and it was awesome to get to see him. It was the first time I'd seen him in years, and I haven't seen him since, man. I love that dude, and I miss him. And I'm bummed the way that things ended with all of us and stuff, and more respect for that dude than I do most other people in the world.
So. And dude, he is one of the great unsung riders of that era, man, that got very little credit for the things he pulled off. Some amazing stuff came out of that dude.
Well, to his riding credit, was it you that were telling? Was it you or Jay? I can't remember. One of you were telling me that you'd have this whole crew of pros that would show up, and the feature would be there, and everybody's eyeing it up, and they're like, and then Durst would just say, "Oh, fuck it, dude. I'll here we go. I'll show you how to do it." Yeah.
No, the South Shore Soldier Camp. Remember that one, Jay?
Yeah, the horseshoe box one. I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so we they was expanding on the C box when we first got to Heavenly, so we built the horseshoe shaped box with the high bank C but full 180, and the South Shore Soldier dudes, all the ones that were shoulder tapping Day in the parking lot and trying to fight us out at the clubs at night in the casinos. The cool dudes that they were, all day long couldn't make the C box couldn't make it around that box. Just couldn't do it.
And Durst just watch. Yeah.
Durst shows up and he just sits there and he smokes a blunt watching them for like 45 minutes, and he just laughs, dude. And he puts on his snowboard and he just like makes it all the way around, like
first try,
180 on, 270 off, his first try, takes his snowboard off and fucking walks away.
Well, no, he went back to smoke the rest of the blunt.
Yeah. And then Pat Lee drops in and just fucking slays the thing. And it's just like, it was fucking hilarious, man.
Well, and my connection to those guys started way back on the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, like that region, I mean, put out a lot of great snowboarders in that era, man. Like the Pat Lees and the Sean Dursts and the John Kramers and that whole generic snowboards crew, like, which no one remembers, or even, the Colin Lentzes. I mean, there was a lot of those guys came out to Heavenly and stuff to link up with us because they knew we were doing the park.
Well, see, and that's a big deal because you had that was the one thing that always stuck out to me about Kingvale was that your rider base, the people that were going to ride that product were,
Oh God.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking, Joe Schmo from the Bay Area coming
No.
up and being stoked on riding Kingvale. I mean, we're talking, you guys were doing things that nobody was doing, and you had all walks of life there. And you had a very
Yeah.
niche crew that was coming there also too and destroying features. Pro riders,
Yeah.
pro teams, photo shoots, films, sections, and movies that were big time movies. And it was crazy because I remember watching video parts and just going, oh fuck, that was, and then I remember rewinding it and getting just a little, I don't know, 5-second clip of a trick on a box or a junkyard feature at Kingvale, and you would rewind it and go, that's Kingvale. Because that's what I'm talking about right there. That's what I was telling you about. I remember doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vividly.
Yeah.
So like all the stuff that was there, and then hearing like Joe talk about Durst and Jay talk about Durst and you talk about Durst and just the footage that's out there of him riding.
Yeah.
But the stories of him showing people how it was done, those are the ones that kind of, I wish I could have seen that, man.
The raddest thing about Durst, man, he rode better than most anyone out there, man. I wouldn't say he's the best rider on the planet, but he was by far probably the best one I've ever got to know. And he did not think it made him better than anybody. He had no ego about it. He and the South Shore Soldier story I just told in the horseshoe box, he laughed at them because they thought they were the shit, you know. And it's not that he proves he was better than them. It's just that he thinks it's so funny that because you're better at snowboarding than somebody else, that makes you better than them. He always laughed at people like that, you know.
Right.
You know, and I such respect for him, and he saw the mountain through such different eyes, man. I'll never forget. I took him to Diamond Peak once when during the Kingvale years, I think, and
yeah,
I remember riding next to him, and he just looks over at me, and he's got this big shit-eating grin on his face, and I was like, "What the fuck's he smiling about?" And he'd never even been there before, and he just saw this rock, and he rides over to this rock off the edge of the trail, and jumps off it and bear hugs the top of a tree, and he's just fucking stuck in the top of this fucking tree. Like, never been there before, and just sees that and does it, man. Like, and another one, like, we was when we were at Heavenly, I went and built some photo shoot jumps at Diamond Peak in the spring, and had this, like, it's just like a 65-foot step or something like that, and they were closed, and all day long, all these other people were hitting it, and I couldn't get Durst to jump it at all. He's just digging these side hits and fucking around all day. And then finally one day, at the end of the day, here comes Durst, and he skips the first feature, and he's coming towards the jump at the bottom. I was like, oh, here he comes. And drops in. He's got his aviator shades on. He just spins this, like, flat 7 or something. But
on a 147 with the nose and tail cut off.
But like, but the crazy part, dude, his aviators go flying off, and he's got his grab, and he's spinning flat and just like smooth as butter, and he just reaches out and catches his aviators and puts them back on his face and lands and rides away.
Oh my God!
I'll never forget that vision. It's just like he just. Such a natural and has such a different view of the world.
Yeah.
Like the way an artist sees things different than than most people. Like, that's how Durst was with snowboarding. And
that's why, because him and I linked up at Mountain High.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because it was you, Joe, and Durst that went to Super Park, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's part of that that John Kramer crew, like, because he was they were all on Dub. Remember Dub?
Oh yeah, definitely remember Dub.
Yeah, they were all part of that Dub crew, and then I met Durst through Kramer and all them, and I just was like, dude, this guy's riding is insane, and I wanted him near my park.
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, and that was all that success at Kingvale with all that riding, man, is all due to his work, man. I mean, the things he did there and the way that he looked at things differently, it inspires me to make park differently. You know, you need those guys around, man.
We got more push road questions we got to get through for sure. Let's see. Jeff Harper.
Ooh.
Rope tow or J-bar?
Rope tow, Jeff. So Jeff Harper is the twin brother of the Brad Harper guy that originally made that first C-Box with me in the parking lot of Mountain High.
Nice.
And they were sponsored kids that we all rode together, man. And I've just stayed friends with them for the years. But I know exactly what he's referencing, and I'm gonna give him rope tow instead of J-bar. and I'm gonna leave it there.
Oh, okay. Mizzle Adams is waiting. He's gonna push for a question for you. Mizzle asks, so the Kingvale project was a dream that many builders have. What did it feel like to have it taken away from you? And then what does it feel like to have it back now?
Ooh. Well, I think that one hit me the hardest. Because up until that point, I had never had a loss of that level, you know. I had been
not many people do.
Yeah. I had a lot of W's up till then, you know, and it, you know, aside from the financial drain, the worst part for me was literally the day that I lost that lease in that spot. I got approved to open a restaurant 100 yards away.
Wow.
And I got stuck there running a pizza place for a whole winter while I watched someone else on what had been our dream, you know? So it's probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through, man. And I will admit there were some depressing times in there, you know, and I probably hit the bottle harder than I should have in the first year of that. You know, it took me a while to kind of find myself. It took me years to find myself again completely. You know, because you just spend the whole time asking yourself where it all went wrong. You know,
yeah.
The saddest part of Kingvale was that it worked. And there were so many rumors and legends, the lore of all this shit that happened, you know, from we blew all our money on strippers and blow, which I already told everybody we had a tab that was free, so it wasn't the strippers, and I'm not a blow kind of guy, so.
And neither am I.
Jay's definitely not. So I can say that one's got no weight to it. I think the other one. What were some of the others, Jay? That we were growing weed all over the back of the mountain or something.
Oh,
we got caught.
Yeah, we got busted. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, if we were growing weed on the back of the mountain, I wouldn't even open that damn park to the public. It would have been me and my boys all day because I would have had so much money it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So really, it just came down to a bad lease that and an extremely hard to deal with landlord who, as we did better and saw the parking lot do better, every year would try to alter the lease to get him more money. And it came down to we were about to install a T-bar that we had bought, and he wanted like
an $80,000 handshake.
Wow.
No, 250,000 because he said he could build a house instead of put that lift there. Remember?
Yeah. But it was like just to sign the permit.
Just to sign the permit. Yeah.
$250K.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he knew we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like
we were nickel and diming to get it through it all, you know, and
it was tough, man.
And at that point, like my, you know, rail builders were still strong. We were still doing good business, and I was just pouring every penny I had into this legal fight. because this was our dream, and you know, I'm not going to get bullied out of it. And so it's just, you know, $1,500 letters back and forth for like 2 years.
Yeah, with lawyers.
And really the only person that wins in the end is the person that can outlast the other one financially. And by that time, I couldn't pay the bills and I couldn't pay the guys, and then we still had the lease, but somebody came behind us and kind of wrote a whole new lease and just showed up one day. And the thing, they thought they were leasing the whole business and the land
with all our stuff.
And I got a phone call. I landed in Virginia to see my family on like a Friday night or maybe a Friday morning, and I got a call from the lawyer who said, "Look, dude, if you don't get your equipment off the property by Monday morning, it's going to be really hard to get it all back because everybody's heard possession's 9/10. And if it's sitting on his land, it's a lot harder for me to claim it's mine." So I flew back that day. By Sunday morning, I had pulled out 2-handle tows, moved 4 snowcats, a whole pile of crap, a bunch of snowmobiles, and I put it.
I ripped the wire out of the ground that we buried to run our fan gun through it.
Wow. Where did you put it though?
10 feet over the line on our neighbor's property.
Holy shit.
And the guys who took the lease from us showed up super mad because we had disassembled a business in one weekend, and had sheriffs and CHP and everything. And I'm standing there with a book of receipts and manuals for every piece of equipment we own. And they're like, "It's a civil matter. Get away from each other." And we drug it out, you know, like lawyer to lawyer for as long as it possibly could. And then I lost 2 houses because I had a house in South Lake from when I lived over there. And then my mom and I purchased one together in Truckee, and neither could afford it, you know, and ended up in a rental for $750 a month with a parking lot full of park equipment and tanks and cats that no other ski resort wanted to give us $1 for. And yeah, it was a tough time, man. But the good news is that it after time it gets easier, and you realize mistakes and you grow from it, you know.
And to that point too, you know, like, to be clear, like, I had kind of walked away before that as well, you know, and Day was pretty much on his own with the other guys, but leading the charge himself. And because, you know, I'm a few years older than Day, and I was at a point in my life where I knew the only thing I wanted to do was get on my feet financially and be able to start a family and stuff and get married, hopefully. And you know, I walked away with, you know, it was tough to do, but I knew we'd given it 5 years and it wasn't necessarily working, you know, and I knew, I, being that much older than Day, I couldn't wait till he was ready to stop, you know.
Right.
And I told him, and Day, I'm sure you remember this, but I was like, dude, we're all good. I don't, you know, I walked away from everything hands clean. Like, you don't owe me anything. There's no hard feelings. No.
Yeah.
I didn't take any fucking tools or anything. And I was like, I hope you're rich and famous tomorrow. I just can't do it anymore. I'll be there for you if you need help. And I helped you pull everything out when all that shit went down. But like,
yeah,
to be totally clear, yeah, that last season Day was trying to do it without me, and mainly because I was at a slightly different point in my life and I just couldn't do it anymore.
but we weren't on snow. This was just me stuck in a pizza place.
Yeah.
You know, watching it all go down.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel abandoned in any way. You know.
Yeah, but and to be clear too, Parker, like our lawyer was positive that we were in the right and we could win if we could afford to sue the landlord. We
Right.
just had been drained with all the $1,500 letters over a couple year period and had no money to sue him with.
I want to hit the second half of Mizzle's question, but I want to just wrap up what you got going on here because I'm really listening. But Kurt Kraus has another Push Road question, and he asks, what was it like after building something like Kingvale, moving on then to places like Pistenbully, Mount Snow, etc.? Because you did what everybody else wanted to do. What was it like moving on in your career and going on to different places eventually?
You go, Jay. I think you had an easier time than I did.
Yeah, I probably did. You know, it was tough because we were in a hole. You know,
yeah,
and financially, I'm still recovering from that. Honestly,
yeah.
I just bought. I'm 48 years old, and I just bought my first house ever. You know,
Right.
but I'm still like, you know, I'm fortunate enough that I have a good enough salary, and my wife doesn't have to work that much, and she mainly takes care of the kids and stuff. And we get by, but like, it still hurts from the sacrifices we made then. And I went the whole 5 years we had Kingvale. I worked at Sugar Bowl as well, building their park at night, and so that first season I left, I worked half the season at Sugar Bowl before I went to work full time for Pistenbully, and so I think I didn't have. I felt so bad for Day. He ended up living on the summit after losing his house in Truckee, and living in a dark, cold, snowy hole across the highway from Kingvale, man. And it
we still had the rail shop right there.
Yeah, right across the street from your house, but like, it's just dark and dreary and shitty. And you're right across the street from staring it in the face every day, whereas I got to be disassociated from it and stuff. And I didn't, you know, it was a long, hard road. Nothing's easy for anybody, but it was tough coming out of the hole. And you know, I spent every summer traveling and installing snowmaking pipe and doing that, and then transitioning to working at Pistenbully and getting in on that gig. And it's been a tough road for me, and I know it's been tough for Day as well. And I have a really good job now and a great team and a good salary, and it's thankfully, again, because I have some good relationships and I've gotten some opportunities and been able to take advantage of those. But you know, if I hadn't learned how to have good relationships, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Mm.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, and to be honest, I definitely heard some of the rumors. The weed growing was definitely something that crossed. I was told that
awesome.
the titty bar was definitely, strip club was definitely another rumor that I'd heard about too. I was like, man, those guys.
The most disheartening thing for me about it, Parker, was that we always had so many irons in the fire of different opportunities, whether it was the TV show stuff or just growing the business, the tubing side of things or the train park side of things, and all of these chances where we were so close. We had real estate investors lined up right as the market started to crash that were already making offers to the landlord to buy the land and gift us the part that we needed, so they could build some slopeside housing, and like there were so many things we were so close on, and the fact that we basically missed on all of them.
We just barely get to touch them.
Yeah, but we were so many, and like, not to be I'm not bragging about it at all, but like, and Day's really good at that with his connections and stuff. He knew the right people, and so we had a lot of potential opportunity, and there was a lot of things right in front of our faces, and it's a really big kick in the balls that we missed the boat on all of them.
Yeah.
You know,
And like I said, financially, it had started to work. That was the saddest part of it all. Is you know, it was doing its thing. You know, we weren't bleeding money other than the lawyers. You know,
yeah,
so that was
Yeah.
the sad part.
Yeah.
Because we both proved to ourselves that it worked, that model worked. You know, it doesn't have to be a $200 lift ticket and heated walkways. There is a client that wants a cheaper experience that's just as fun and full of quality. You know,
Was it the Corinthia opportunity? Was it doing something else? Was it kind of exploring some of your interests outside the snow industry that pulled you out of that hole? What was that?
well, yeah. I mean, I went from everybody was my friend to like 2 weeks later, no one talked to me.
Wow.
Jay would call me and be like, "You okay, man?" Like,
Can I give you a hug, bro?
Didn't it snow like 700 inches that season too, Jay?
Yeah,
I think I was pushing banks for Caltrans off the highway on the road there with the cats, because their blowers wouldn't reach over.
Yeah, I mean, not to put words in your mouth, but probably the first light at the end of the tunnel for you, or getting out of your dark hole, was when you started doing tailgate with Sullivan.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, because that put me back into something. Yeah, and getting off the summit.
Yeah.
Corinthia was awesome in a lot of ways, though. My first, and Eli's going to yell at me for saying this, but my first obvious reaction internally was, I don't want to move to Vermont, man. This is I've worked up and down this whole coast, and this is the geography I like.
Yeah.
You know, but when you've got a mountain of debt, you got to do something. And it took me that first season at Corinthia. I don't think I ever faltered in my job, but my first season at Corinthia was really hard because it was a big adjustment for me. I went back to the East Coast. It had been a long time since I'd been on the East Coast. And I, like many, said, well, I'm going back to, I want to be close to my family, which was awesome. But I was still 9-hour drive away. I could fly there quicker from here, and it was a dark season, but by the end of it, it wasn't as dark, and it every season got better from there. And I don't regret any of my time in Vermont. It was a tough transition, man. I mean, at that point, all I owned was, I've got an International Scout, and I put that on a trailer and filled it with tools, and I filled the bed of my truck, and me and the girl moved to Vermont. Because that's all that was left.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, shifting gears quickly,
Yep.
because it's another cool question. Josh Nelson has a push road question, and he asks, can you tell us about your experience with the dodge of snowcats?
Oh, I know what he's talking about.
I do too.
See, but I'm jaded on that one because I still like that cat. I think that there was quality things about that cat.
Yeah.
He's talking about the Formatic. I did a big pitch to them. Jay and I did a pitch to them. And we ended up being like the R&D guys for that brand for that first season. That, what we have, like the first 2 in the country, Jay?
Yeah, well, to preface that, like a couple of years earlier, we were just like doing our thing or whatever, and I was surfing the internet, just like looking at snowcat stuff in Europe, and I found Formatic online. I showed Day. I was like, oh, check this out. It's got a center cab, and it's got urethane mats that are stiff in the back and don't fold under, and and I was like, it's kind of innovative. And so when Casbor purchased Formatic, and we heard that, then what Day's leading into, yeah, we put something together and approach them. Go ahead, Day.
Yeah. And I mean, the only problem with our whole R&D setup was Kingvale was so flat back then because we were just on that little park at the bottom. We never knew its failures. You know what I mean, Jay? Like,
Yeah.
Like, because gosh, I used that thing for that whole Jackass filming too. Like, I loved that cab. I thought that cab was one of the best cabs that had ever happened. Like, there was just simple little nuances about everything that, you know, the Finns had like come up with clever solutions for things. And it had many downfalls, but I thought that there was a good enough base you could turn it into what it needed to be. And I still think that. I just don't think that it was financially viable for them to do that, you know?
Yeah. And so
go ahead.
That's what, I mean, that's what began our relationship with Casbor. I had one previously with them directly when I was at Diamond Peak before Mammoth, and when the first Park Bullies came out and stuff. But like, building on that, they knew me and they needed a place to test things, and they knew both of us. And but sidebar, the way that Day and I each gave them feedback about the Formatic is why they recruited me to work for them.
Right.
When the
Yeah,
time
you're
came.
better. Well, and you remember I was an asshole, and
Yeah.
and
No, totally.
and well, they showed up unannounced one day, and we didn't have any fuel.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Here, we're here with all the engineers. We're gonna take the cats out." And I was like, "Well, we don't have any fucking fuel, bud. You didn't tell me you were coming." Like, and it was simple as that. And I didn't realize I was standing in front of like the heads of all of, you know, like that's just what came out of my mouth. And that's, you know, I probably should have phrased that a little better. You know, but it is what it is. I'll live up to it.
Maybe it had this. I remember it had this like digi camo like like
it did.
wrap job or something.
You're
yeah.
you're talking about the regular cab though. This you laid on your back like you were an astronaut.
Oh
no,
wow.
you didn't lay on your back, but the seat was on the floor. Basically, it didn't have suspension on the seat, and similar to like an old school Toyota pickup, your legs were out in front of you.
But it was kicked back far because there was no windows. Well, the windshield was like a foot tall.
They were trying to make the cab small enough and low enough that it could get in lift terminals and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And thinking experimentally that maybe cameras were good enough that they could just have some HD cameras, and
it was just like 8 screens, and that was your field of view.
Well, the seat turned all the way around too, right? In the center cab or the regular cab? Because it wasn't just a swivel to the right or left; it pivoted the whole way around.
In the regular cab one, the seat turned a full 180, so you could sit completely sideways.
Yeah.
But in this particular one, it was fixed. But so again, the differences between Day and I, like that cat kind of sucked, and it was just a cab, right? But I took the time to, I spent more time in it. Granted, like Day was busy doing other stuff, and so I took some time and made some notes. And then when they came up, I built some things, and I was like, "There's no visibility. There's no sight lines. You can't. In a normal cat, you know, your doors are over your tires. So even if you're hanging track, you know, if your door isn't hanging over, your tires are still on the snow, and you're okay." This had a faceted front, so there was no straight lines in line with your track, so you couldn't tell where your tires were and couldn't see where your tracks were. And so when they showed up with the engineers from North America and stuff, I built a little hip and stuff, and I parked it on top of the hip, and I made the CEO and the head of engineering and stuff each take turns sitting in it. I go, "Okay, how do you get off this feature? Because you can't see where you are."
Yeah.
And then I drove them out in the trees, and I was like, "Okay, you got some cameras. Let's back her out of here. Go for it." You know, and
yeah.
And so that's what they appreciated about me versus him going, "I don't have time for that shit, bud."
We're not taking them out today, dude. We don't have any fuel. Get off.
I tried I tried to back that thing up to that hip and till it, and I was like, I just remember staring at the screens, and I was just like, I don't know, dude. I'm just gonna drop it here, and just dropped it, and I was like 10 feet away from the thing, and just drove away.
And so, to me, what was impressive to me about that whole thing was that eventually they listened, right? And they cut that thing up and threw it away.
Yeah.
Right. So when they recruited me, I was impressed by the fact that the CEO of North America had committed to that experiment.
Yeah.
And recognized it was the wrong direction.
But my frustration, if you remember, Jay, was that they spent a crap load of money to build that thing without talking to an operator.
Completely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. But the fact that he was willing to accept that he made a mistake and an expensive one, and didn't just keep throwing money at it.
Dude.
Agreed.
You know,
Agreed.
But
he could have spent half that and put 3 qualified guys.
For
not
sure,
even us.
Shoulda, coulda.
The
circumstances were what they were, and I was excited that somebody was trying to think outside the box. And I was.
Do you have a picture of that thing?
What's that?
Yeah, do you have a photo?
No, because I signed an agreement saying I wouldn't take any pictures that I totally don't have.
Huh.
Right.
Well, what about bullshit? But it was cool. Like I thought it was neat to see somebody kind of attempting to reinvent the wheel for a product offering.
And that's what I was.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what was enticing to me about it. One, I needed a job.
Yeah.
And two,
most importantly,
but it was cool to have that opportunity.
Our next special guest question is from Joe Genovese, and he's contributed to the podcast as a guest on the show before too, but he's got some questions for Day and Jay, so I will go ahead and play question number 2. Here we go.
So I have a question for Mr. Jay Rydd as well. Jay, we had a fun time hanging out for a minute at the last super park, the Crystal Mountain, and you were very involved with I think you both were very involved with the development of the Park Pro joystick. And after running the new Pistenbully joystick, you were quite vocal about how you thought it was amazing and, oh wait, no, you hated it. Maybe you can elaborate on that and how, they eliminated the use of our opposing thumb. You had a very good take on that at Super Park, and maybe you could talk about that for a minute. Might be interesting, who knows?
Nice. Yeah. Joe's awesome. Joe's a straight shooter, and he's always seeking the truth. Hate's a strong word. I certainly don't hate the new controls. It's a different way than what we went with the Park Pro stuff. The Park Pro joystick obviously was meant for park builders, and park builders are tend to be pretty aggressive in what you're doing, and we spent a lot of time developing what we did with a lot of operator feedback. My feedback was included in that, but we got a lot of feedback from a lot of different people, and it all started with myself, and Carter Shields was our main engineer for the Park Pro project. He's one of my best friends in the world, smartest guy on the planet, in my opinion. And Bill Brandt, who's the owner of Mohawk Track Vehicles, that is the Pistenbully dealer in most of the East Coast and now Eastern Canada as well. The three of us got together and each had a piece of clay, and we made joysticks one day, and mine and Bill's both look pretty similar. We both have a lot of time in excavators and stuff, and Carter's was a little more engineerish. And
didn't you work on those like a long time though? Like it wasn't just a day you guys had clay. Like you carried clay around for a long time.
No, that was one day.
It was just one day?
It was just one day.
Yeah. One day with the clay. As far as the
one
base,
day with the clay.
Yeah,
great day for hay.
for the base shape. So like mine and Bill's look pretty similar, and then just for regular joystick shape, with a little cant to it, more rest in the palm of your hand versus grabbing it.
Yeah.
And then, I took it and I sat in the 400 and I was looking at the dashboard and looking at the joystick, and I was like, how do you get all the stuff from the dashboard onto the joystick without making 50 buttons for your thumb to do? Right. Because my biggest thing was with all the controls was you shouldn't ever have to let go of your controls unless you want to. And the way cats were before the Park Pro, you had to constantly let go, reach over the dashboard and do something, activate something, and it didn't matter which brand you were running, And so that was the primary focus of what I was trying to achieve. And so I was like, how do you get the dashboard on the joystick without it being this giant thing for your thumb and overworking your thumb? And I was like, how about a little dashboard for the joystick that moves with the joystick? And that's when I came up with put another piece of clay out in front and put some switches and dials out there. And that's how that idea came up. And then Carter perfected it into what it is today with the actual potentiometers and everything.
Yeah, but you guys were like full skunk works back then. I remember that.
Yeah, it was super rad opportunity, man. Like I can't stress that enough. Like to be an operator for so long and to get to work for the manufacturer and get to really have true input on what gets done. And for me, I took a lot of pride in the fact that I wasn't making the machine for me. I was making the machine for everybody else who was out there operating and the people who were coming up. A lot
100%.
of operator,
I agree.
a lot of operator feedback. Guys really want it to work perfect for them. And then,
when you talk to a lot of people, and
I
mean, and all those Kingvale era years, there was a lot going on that we were doing that was all of a sudden wow, this is something that would be cool on a cat going forward. And there was a lot of
and a lot of it too, everything on the Park Pro was streamlining the operation and making it so you're not working around the cat. You're focused on what you're doing instead of being focused on working around the cat, right? And so most parks have one, maybe two good builders on their team, and everybody else, those builders are held back by the skill level of everybody else being able to maintain or not the features that they build.
Ooh, that's deep.
So
it is deep.
Yes, but so the thought process is high level guys, the Park Pro helps them, or what we were trying to do hopefully was helpful to them, but they didn't need that. They could do it in any cat.
Right.
It's the guys who support them, the guys and girls who support them, who have a hard time. They don't have a good natural sense of level in their head. Some of us have a really good, I can tell when something's pretty level or not. I don't need something to tell me, but a lot of guys I've rode with, so many guys, you're like, okay, level your blade, and they just keep tilting it to the left, and they can't tell that it's not level, and they're making it worse.
Right.
Or open your wings flat, or all those things that some people have a natural ability to be really proficient at that stuff, and that's usually your lead builder. And then the other people, they'll come up to a rail takeoff and take 2 whole minutes, which is an eternity. But so back to the joystick, the shape of the joystick and stuff, the goal for me, one of the goals I had was that every joystick prior, your relaxed position and your tense position were different, at least in the way I held them and stuff. You'd be relaxed and you'd sort of slack down on your joystick and stuff. And then when you'd roll over a jump knuckle or something like that, or do something sort of sketchy, you'd disengage and re-engage, re-grip in a different position on your joystick. And so with the Park Pro joystick, your relaxed position and your tense position where you're supporting your upper body, because that's what you do on your controls. A lot of people don't realize they're doing that, but it's the same position. So when you're relaxed, you loosen your grip a little bit, and it's laying in the palm of your hand and you're pushing it around, but you're still landing on all your important functions with your thumb and your 2 fingers. But then when you tense up, you don't change positions, you just grab it a little bit tighter. And then everything else was, you're always on your most important functions with your digits that you're using. But anytime you reach over to, whether it's tap a dumbbell ear or steer your tiller or something like that, it's such a short movement with your thumb and you're right back to the J&J, and that's what I was worked really hard with the test group and stuff. So Carter and I would, it's a 3D printed joystick. So Carter would design one, we'd have it 3D printed, he'd make it work, put all the electronics in it and everything, and then we would go test it up at Boreal. And I had my test group of people, was Matt Malilly and Tim Hay and Keola Willis and Junior and Eric Rosenwald and stuff. And I knew all those guys really well, and I knew their hands, and I knew how they like to hold their joysticks, and I knew how they all operated, so I could filter their feedback. Like Eric Rosenwald has gigantic hands,
huge hands.
Yeah, so something that works, that's really comfortable for him, is not going to be comfortable for anybody else. And then, like, Keola really liked to hold the top of his joystick and not hold it the way anyone ever intended it to be held. So I knew that when he gives feedback, it's skewed from that direction. And so we would make a new prototype and go up there. We would run it for a few hours, turn the guys loose on it, we had what we thought was needed to be changed. We would confirm or deny that with what the operators would tell us. We'd make a new one because they were just 3D printed. So Carter would make some changes in the CAD program, send it off to get made. And we probably had like 6 or 8 different iterations of the joystick as it went. And then once we got approval that it was going to go to production, then we sort of had to stop testing with it. There's more things I would have liked to have done with it, but certainly solved a lot of the problems that we were going to solve.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's just completely awesome that you got to be the conduit to make all that happen.
Yeah.
Between all the builders that you've worked with or seen, or because in the past it took so long to make a button change, and that's what was the progression in my mind, was you being that conduit in between everything was the amazing part of it all.
Do you think that was maybe the highlight, or one of the biggest highlights of your career, Jay?
Yeah, completely. I mean, was very fortunate. I was right place at the right time. Like all the guys I worked with at Casbor, Carter is amazing. He made all my snowcat dreams come true. Just on it. The dude is amazing. He doesn't work there anymore either, but he just, everything about the Park Pro, he's the one who designed it all. We had ideas, and he's the one who created it all. And then when the cat went to production, he went and lived in Germany for 3 months to make sure that it was going to be produced the way that we had designed it.
Wow.
But from Carter to Jeb Ellemeyer and Colin Hales and Josh Nelson and Bill Brandt and all the people that were involved in our group that we worked with at Casbor and feeding off each other, and the guys, Jim Grury in Utah and stuff, like it was the right place at the right time, and we were fortunate to get the keys to the castle. In a lot of ways, there's always things you wish went different. And is it perfect? No, but it was so amazing to get the opportunity. And then there were so many other things like
well, if we were to tie it all together, it's really, you're embracing the future, instead of kicking and screaming and whining and bitching and complaining, you're going, hey, I'm okay with it. And we're going to adapt, and we're going to move forward, and I'm going to be excited about the technology. And
exactly. And part of why I was able to do what I was able to do with Casbor when I worked there was because I understood the generation that there was. I understood, I spent most of my career running Prenoths and PBs, so I understood both manufacturers very well and stuff. And so same thing with this new generation. Are there going to be things you want to change? Of course, there's going to be things that can be improved upon and stuff, but you can't speak to those unless you recognize how it works now and how you want it to work differently.
Mm.
You know, so the sooner you get involved in that, you know, the better off you have, or the better chance you have of making a positive impact. You know,
when ultimately it's going to end up being Cat and John Deere controls.
Yeah, flipping the switch underneath the seat.
Yeah, someday.
But
they're both going to have their standardization.
Yeah.
You know, like that's because the heavy equipment industry is ahead, I would say.
I would agree with that.
They've been doing it longer, so why not follow the lead of the industry that came before?
Yeah, it's just a matter of we do so much more than they do control wise. But
there's excavator guys out there right now rolling over, bud.
Yeah. Oh,
dude, I got just as much excavator time as anybody.
I know.
There's no buttons that do anything in an excavator besides turn your stereo on or make your tracks go faster.
Oh God. Yes.
You know, or turn it into hammer mode, which you stop what you're doing and scroll through the screen and change your pump settings. Like it's not, you know, what I call
your excavators have screens.
Wow.
Yeah. But what I call the symphony of movement. So what you do in a snowcat, you know, you're like a guy conducting an orchestra. You know, like in
I was comparing it to a drummer.
Yeah, everyone loves to compare. Yeah, everyone loves to compare snowcats to like farm equipment. You know what? I've never run a harvester and stuff like that, but they have on-off functions, right? So many things in snowcats are proportional, but they're proportionally controlled while you're proportionally controlling other things. Your tracks are proportionally controlled. Your blade, all your blade movements, 14 different directions, 8 directions of your tiller, like, and your dumble ears and
it's an orchestra.
All of the things you're doing. It's a symphony of movements, and there is no other machine that you're proportionally controlling so many functions at the exact same time. You know, the overarching thing, you know, like for me, the point I'll make is, I'm super proud of what we did and everything. And right now, this year at Diamond Peak, we were budgeted to buy a new Park Pro, and I'm buying a 600 Park, not a Park Pro. You know, so if that tells you my answer, but I have the choice right now, and I have the money, and I could have bought another Park Pro if I really felt that strongly that a Park Pro, like that, I love that joystick, and if I hated the new joystick, that wouldn't be the case. You know,
right?
Yeah. Okay, I want to audible. I want to go back to Kingvale, but Kingvale itself, you know, it's not, that footprint doesn't really work at a whole lot of resorts. You just mentioned that, you know, everybody wants to offer this, you know, heated sidewalks or cookie cutter experiences. You know, what you guys were doing was really the dream. It was one of, if not the first, all mountain parks. And you only really seem limited by your imaginations of what was possible there to be able to offer the guests something like that. But you were doing tubing during the week or the weekend, whichever one it was, and you were essentially offering 2 different products to 2 different customers to be able to
on the same snow.
On the same snow. So how vital was doing that tubing hill operation to the success of Kingvale?
I mean, I'm not sure. I'm just trying to say it properly. In my opinion, no one's going to get rich off terrain parks.
Yeah.
How's that?
I think that's pretty PC, but
it's like, you know how I always reference skateboarding, but I mean, you go by a complete deck today and it's probably within $20 of what it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, a blank deck's probably still around $50. And it just, you got to do that. I mean, we did the tubing to pay the bills and fund our dream, you know. Every Friday night we would tear down the park and put in tubing lanes over the same features. And we'd run them till Sunday night, and then Sunday night we'd tear down the tubing lanes and we'd rebuild a park for Monday morning. I mean, what in turn it did though was every week there was a new setup.
we were doing all this, like even back at the Heavenly days, like we were always tag team and everything, right? So like when we were at Heavenly, they worked at Heavenly managing the park during the day, and I was the lead builder at night. And so during the day, I was down at our shop in Carson welding rails all day while he was at Heavenly, and then we basically high-fived on the way.
Yeah.
He came down and welded all night, and I was building park all night. And we lived together and worked 2 to 3 jobs together for
long time,
10 years, you know.
Yeah.
And so we were doing the same thing at Kingvale. While for the first couple of years, we still had rail shops down either in Carson the first year, which is insane, and then moved over to Reno and out in Lima Valley, and then eventually up on the summit across the highway from Kingvale. But there was always one of us running the welding shop and one of us running the hill, and both of us doing the changeover at night, and then I'd groom, one of us would groom the park in the evening, and then I'd go fucking run home the truckie and sit in my hot tub for 5 minutes, and then get back in my car and go up to Sugar Bowl and groom their park all night long, 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
So it was like for me, it was 7 days a week at Kingvale and 5 nights a week at Sugar Bowl for years. You know? And welding and you, it's just like, that's just what we did, you know?
Yeah. Busting ass. Shoring.
So Lane Kanak has contributed to the podcast with a special guest question. Huge shout out to him for contributing. And he says, first off, thank you both for everything you guys have done for snowboarding over the years. Too much to go over in a short question, but you guys have lived the dream. He wants to know, how did you guys find Kingvale in the first place? We've kind of gone over that a little bit, but he's, goes on to state, I know you were in Tahoe doing rail builders and working at Heavenly, but that was over at Donner's Summit. Day, over the years, so first question today. Day, over the years, Kingvale had a lot of sponsors. Who was the best out of them all? And secondly, do cup holders belong in the cab or outside?
I'm never going to win that one.
Yeah.
But it's so much smarter. Have you seen the memes for groomers where it's like, it's something about the temperature of your drink in your Pistenbully, and just like, it's like 127 degrees or something.
That
I enjoyed that one. I was like, just put a cup holder out the window, damn it.
Yeah, that worked really well.
Well, we used to screw them to the outside of our cat in the Kingvale years. So you just reach out the window and put your drink in the, she stayed chilly all night. She was right there for you.
Yeah, we would just take the bottom half of a Gatorade bottle and just screw it to the outside of the door, and just because we had MPs, and I had an MP at 275, and you just pop the pop window, and there's your drink right outside.
Lane does have a question or two for Jay. Oh, but best sponsor, really quick, Day. Sorry.
And honestly, I'm gonna give credit to finding Kingvale to the classifieds and Ski Management magazine.
Oh, sick.
Yep. Remember that day, Jay?
Yeah.
And best sponsor. Oh man, it's got to be Rydd. I've been with Rydd on and off since, I don't know, 98 or something. I had a few other sponsors back then, but Rydd, I ended up being on Rydd with my good friend Jeremy Klein, and rode for them until I told them I didn't want to do it anymore. And then they still continued to support Kingvale and everything. I mean, from guys like Matt Sickles and Kaz Duffy and all that early Rydd snowboards crew that made that company so great, man. Like they gave us so much love and support. Like there wasn't a human being on the planet that we all knew that didn't have a board. They
made boards with the van on it.
It did. Yeah.
Well, no, solid answers for sure. Lane asks Jay, says, Jay, have you ever scared the literal shit out of anybody? And and do you ever regret moving on from operating to working on cats, then to resort management versus still being in a cat every day? Lane says, miss and love you guys. Can't wait to come back and see where Kingvale picks up where it was left off.
Some people earn some stuff, yeah. There was an instance where, I don't know, I guess I'm not legally responsible for anything. It's been so long, but we had like a party for whatever. I don't remember what the reason was at night one night, and normal random show up or whatever, and it was at Kingvale, and this one dude was there and just going around and starting shit with everybody, and everybody was like, I'm gonna kick his ass, and then somebody would like back that person down and just like, and then eventually I saw Durst actually really wanted to kick the shit out of this kid, and I was like, what the fuck's going on? And so I like separate Durst from him and got in the middle of it, and then this guy, like, he's just super drunk, and he's this little pro skier guy, and he was super drunk, and so he started talking shit to me, and
he said things he didn't need to say.
I was just blowing him off, and then he's like, I'm gonna go to my car and get my gun and shoot you all. And I'm like, nobody fucking tells me that they're gonna shoot us on our property. And he was just little, and I used to have a bit of a choke. I had a bit of a choking problem there for a few years, and they witnessed that a little bit, but I might have lifted him off the ground by his neck a little bit, and then. But anyway, yeah. So we escorted him off the property, and I walked him down the hill with a couple other people, and they followed us in the snowcat with the spotlight on him, and he shit his pants literally, and got him down.
They were in his ankles.
Yeah. It was
I mean, not by choice, but
yeah, but and he had shit all over him, and then I put him in JP Martin's car and had JP drive him home.
Well, somehow God. JP was the only one who knew who he was.
Yeah, he had known him from like 10 years earlier at ski camps on Mount Hood or something like that. So somehow they didn't show up together or anything, but JP kind of knew him or something. And
well, the way I remember it is those guys were surrounding him like a pack of wolves, and I think I said to you, will you go over there and get them away, or I'll get them away from him, you handle him.
Yeah,
it happens.
A little more happened too, but it was all anyway. It was, yes, I made somebody shit their pants, yeah, no, I to the second part of his question, like, I don't wish I was still an operator every day. First off, like, I physically can't do it anymore. So even like by the time I met Day, actually, like my first week in a cat at Mammoth, like, or I think literally my first night, I forget who I was working with, but they roll up to me because I was outside of my cat throwing up because, like, I used to have park neck so bad that, in the old cats with no visibility, you're stretching your neck so bad to see, and I would get park neck so bad that I would, like, just, I don't know if I was cutting off my circulation or what, but I would just get super dizzy and then have to get out and throw up once in a while, and just like, it didn't happen very often, but like just out of nowhere, just like boom, vertigo, and just have to get out and throw up, and so over the years I just beat the shit out of my body between snowcats and excavators and dozers and older machines, and then that was one of the other things with that experimental cab in the piston or in the Formatic, like that one, the seat was on the floor and there was no suspension, and because your legs were out in front of you, that's what taught me how much your legs do for you in a snowcat. And they absorb a lot of the suspension, or they are the suspension for you quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I ran that cat for like 4 hours one day in the woods, and then I couldn't work the next day at Kingvale. It was a Saturday tubing, And I came to work and had to go home after like an hour because my back hurt so bad.
Yeah.
You know, and so as much as I love machines and stuff, and I love operating snowcats, and I really love running excavators and stuff, like I can't physically do it anymore. And I love when my guys give me the opportunity, and so no, I don't regret doing what I'm doing. I don't wish I was still running the machine. And like, you know, to be honest, I have a family to support, and I'm doing the best I can to help change the industry and make it so that you can support your family from behind the sticks. But right now you can't.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, speaking of your team and you singing their praises, I think that's okay. Doing that continuously. I've got Matt Malilly and his special guest question. We'll do a 1-2 punch between he and Lane. I'll play that for you both now. He's got something for you both. Here we go.
Hello, Blade Dive. Well, thank you for letting me call in. And I must say, I'm very excited to hear from Jay and Day about Kingvale. Mostly because Kingvale was at a time where terrain parks were becoming popular and really tied to bigger resorts. And then you guys just went off and did your own thing the way you wanted to. And it was inspirational to other builders and also riders as a place to go and really cut loose and kind of do their own style, which you guys did very well. And that leads me to my question. Is debatable who necessarily started using junk and stuff in terrain parks, but that definitely was something that shined in your park, where you had these creative terrain parks with fuel tanks and propane tanks and cement mixers, and it looked like anything you could possibly weld together to make a terrain park out of. And I'm sure that had something to do with, you know, budget restraints, but it definitely set the bar moving forward, where even the big terrain parks were out looking at junkyards to kind of mimic what you were doing. And I'm curious how that came to be, where you found all the stuff, and how that kind of led the direction that you guys went with Kingvale. Also, sidebar question. I have heard some crazy stories from Jay, who I work with. But Day, I don't know you too well, so maybe you can kind of collaborate with all the craziness that you guys did with, say, the Dudson show and people crapping their pants in the parking lot while Jay chokes them out. You know, stuff like that. Maybe you can kind of fill in some of the gaps that I have in those stories. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for letting me call in, and can't wait to hear your episode.
I don't remember where I saw my first use of just a shape instead of a rail. I don't remember where I initially saw it first. I don't know that I can take credit for it. But I know that as soon as I discovered it, it opened a whole new world of park features for me. And it was like a drug. I wanted more. Like, we had a junkyard sponsor at Kingvale.
Wow.
Like, Little John's Little John's Junkyard. Like, and we gave him firewood and he gave us stuff.
Holy shit. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that cement mixer too, man. Like, think of the life of that cement mixer, Jay. We grabbed that for that last team challenge.
Yep.
From a
2017 challenge.
When was it?
2007.
That was a team challenge, the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we drug that thing out of the ditch at the junkyard, and then I remember plasma cutting all the tines and concrete out of it in the parking lot at Heavenly for that team challenge. And then it went to Kingvale, and now it's at Woodward.
Oh shit. Well, I remember too, like, and the reason why I love the question is because that went down at Kingvale. And I mean, yeah, you're not taking credit for it. That's cool. But that all went down at Kingvale. And then, you know, I'm on park crew at June Mountain 2007, and propane land pops up, you know.
Right.
And then you're seeing Mammoth use them. And then you're seeing well, Bear maybe was using them at the same time, maybe Kingvale was, but you got Heavenly that's using them. You got all
Right.
these larger name programs that are using these type of features, whether or not they have a reason for why they were using it. I think a big portion of the reason is because Kingvale was doing it, but that's my take on it. Yeah.
I have preached this for years, though. Jay's heard me say this way too many times, but I am a firm believer in that the aesthetics of said park is equally important, if not more important, than actually what that park is laid out to be like. And I've tested this theory many times. I can take a jump, and one day they tell me it's the worst thing that's ever happened, and maybe I didn't clean it up as good as I should have, and I'm like, okay, guys, I got you, and I changed the takeoff. I'll change the takeoff tonight. Don't touch the takeoff. I just clean it up. I make it pretty. Don't even change the tranny one bit. They come back the next day and tell me it's the best jump ever, and thanks for fixing it.
So sick. Power of the mind.
Well, if it looks like a pile of dog shit, it's gonna taste shitty.
Right.
Yeah.
So the artist in me is always looking for aesthetically pleasing shapes, and I still to this day look at a snowboard park as if I was like skateboarding, because I keep referencing that, but I think that a lot is lost in the fact that those guys came along way before us, and the level that they're at now is, in their parks and stuff, I think is well surpassed where we're at. We're now limited by size because we're too big, in my opinion. A rail's 2 to 6 inches wide, and a fun box is a couple feet wide, and a snowboard's a foot wide, and my snowcat's 18 feet wide. So the Kingvale model too was, we would cram all those features, and everything was a half pass.
Yeah.
So we were essentially putting double the features with the same amount of snow on the hill. And that was out of necessity at first, but then we quickly realized, like, look at all these other transitions and directions we're creating and lines. And that just started to embellish. And the tanks were perfect for that because they're really non-directional, and there's nothing cooler than one of those painted the right way sticking out of the snow. It just it aesthetically, it gives those parks that feel of that concrete skate park with the spinning cone in the middle, and I just love the aesthetics of them, and the way that you could be not very good and still just ride over a tank and tap it, and it's the best thing you did all day, like, or somebody really good can do unimaginable things off a tank. So that's where the tanks came up for me.
Okay, well, the tanks are coming back to life, and I say that, and I mean, as we kind of unpacked a lot of those push road questions, I want to circle back to Mizzle's question and really get you, whatever you're willing to share, the reopening, relaunch of Kingvale and being able to do the dream again. What can you share, if anything?
Well, yeah, and I don't know. One thing about Kingvale is it's always been a little under the radar, which I think has helped make it kind of the mystique of what it is. But and everybody's got to remember that this decision was not made easily, and it was made probably about 6 weeks ago at the most, to even go this direction. And the current owners, the property, just have always wanted me to come back, and kudos to them for making the effort to chase me for so long. But it the offer that got presented to me was hard to turn down, and to actually own a part of the original dirt that I was chasing, 11 years ago, and be a part of it again, and hopefully be smarter and know what mistakes to not make. But just being able to not be kicked off that property and be a part of the actual ownership of the whole thing was the big plus for me. And redemption is sweet. And if I could make it work, it would it would really go a long way, man. Because to this day, I know that whole plan works. And it did work. It proved itself, and we had hit the mark where it was about to work better. But the landlord at the time had different ideas, as we talked about. But these gentlemen believe in what we originally did there, and that's huge. It took them 11 years to convince me of that. I had a lot of baggage to get rid of and accept the fact that they ended up owning it. But if they're willing to share that with me and let me make the dream that we all originally dreamed happen, then I'm 100% on board. So that's a huge opportunity. It just was a tough decision to make. Going forward, because we're only, winter's beating our door down already. My hope for this season is to get this Toe Pro deal, in, and I worked with Will Mayo and those guys, and I believe in their product and they believe in our product, and trying to make a partnership there to get that lift going. And best case scenario in my world is to get that lift spinning by January 1st for public kids, like right after the holidays. But I do want everyone to realize it's the first lift of this kind going into California, so there's things that we have to work out, and there could be stumbling blocks, but they'll all be solvable. It's just I can't guarantee anybody a time frame, and I don't want to oversell and guarantee and then go, oh no, it's going to be a month later or something. So everybody's just going to kind of have to wait patiently. But the biggest improvement is that we're going to over triple the park terrain that we had originally. We're going to go to the top of the mountain that we all originally wanted to go to. We just didn't have the money to do it. And thanks to this rope tow, we're going to be able to make it to that top. And I mean, Jay, the terrain. It's the terrain that we fell in love with in 2005.
Yeah, no, Parker. It's funny because I was up there last week with Day and got a tour around of some of the work he's been doing up there, and I still remember the very first time we were on that property. We were first looking at buying the lease from the previous leaseholder in 2004 or late 2005, whenever it was, and riding up the hill, the three of us in the cat, and just looking at the terrain and knowing what it would look like if we were able to clear the brush and the young trees on it and stuff. And now Day's done a lot of that work in the last month or so, and it looks exactly like we knew it would.
Yeah,
back in 2005, and it's cool. It's really cool to see that, and like I can't tell you enough. Like I haven't been up there. I've been fortunate enough to be able to stay away from it, unlike Day, who's got slapped in the face with it for a really long time. And it's I told my wife when I got home that night, I was like, I was really glad I got to go up there and see all that and see the way that it's shaping up, and to confirm that it is just like Dave's saying, it's working out exactly the way that we knew it would. The terrain looks exactly like we knew it would, and it's really cool to see what he's doing up there right now.
Well, I think the coolest thing about the whole picture, and I've mentioned this before too, but it's that adventure, the first adventure there at Kingvale, was all in the name of snowboarding. And I don't think that messaging changes, irrespective of what your expansion may be. And
No.
I don't think I'm wrong there at
Yeah.
all. And,
No.
and that's the big value in that place coming back to life for me. Because it was definitely it was a piece of history in time that, looking at it through the pages of magazines and through videos and things that were produced, there's not a lot of places out there like that anymore. And to have it be brought back to life, reinvigorated, expanded upon. I mean, you've got some ideas. You are an ideas guy. Both of you are.
Right.
But I guess maybe to just stir the pot a little bit, but in a good way, you don't have Jay there. So maybe talk about what's going on. And you hit that a little bit. You hit that a little bit in the first conversation we recorded last week, but I do want you to kind of hit that. Like, you don't have a Jay there, but it's not like you're doing it alone, and you've got interest that's generated around this thing coming back to life.
I do. And, and the original cast of characters that were involved in this, man, that group will never be duplicated. It just, everybody had something to bring to the table. That it just, the chemistry and dynamic of that team, man, I can't ever compare it to anything. But it's, trust me that those cast of characters, and especially Jay, are missed. I'm standing there looking at a lift line going, okay, so what should I do? All right, I'll just use my best guess. And I might still call Jay and go, what do you think, man?
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of our relationship. So even if he's not there on a daily basis, man, I know that he's there in spirit. It to sound cheesy, but I know that he's one phone call away, and I know that he'll shoot me straight and tell me what he thinks. Yeah. And that's huge, So I've got a great group of guys, that have worked with me in the newer era from Corinthia, and, that are part of this second coming, and and then I've got great guys like Jay in the background that I know will back me up and help me in any way they can, so. And like I said before, man, I'm not trying to take the park world on. I'm just trying to make a place that's fun again, and it's not crazy expensive. And yes, it's going to be park, and but it's going to be our style of park, and that's that. If that's all it is, then that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Where's the DeLorean at? Just go back in time.
Yeah, I'd shaved 11 years off easy, but I'm in.
I'll tell you what, Parker. We were up there last week. I was like, I was only up there for the afternoon with them and stuff, and we're just talking about it, looking at the lift line and stuff, and I was like, I couldn't help myself. I was like, well, where's the dozer, dude? We got like 2 hours. I'll get that thing up there.
I believe it, man.
I had to talk him out of it. I was like, well, the excavator's parked down there, and then the dozer's over there. And he's like, well, I got 2 hours, man. Like, let's knock it out. And
let's go.
I was like, dude, there's nothing more than I would love on this earth than to sit in machine to machine with you right now, pushing dirt at Kingvale. But let's talk about it down the road a little bit here. I'm pushing for celebrity guest grooming on a monthly basis. I've got a list going. There's going to be celebrity builds, I think.
Copy that. Diamond Peak Kingvale collab. Would love to see it. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to take a minute and thank both of you so much for being a part of the podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know you both better. I'm excited for people to tune in and listen. So, yeah, thank you both so much.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the long nights of you doing this, man. It's truly appreciated.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having us on, Parker, and thanks for what you're doing. I've told you before, man, but it's so cool to me that everyone's got their own opinion or what they get out of your podcast and stuff, and I know so many of the people that you've had on as guests, and we know them how we know them, and it's so cool to hear the rest of people's stories for us, even people that we've known for decades now, to hear some of the backstories about them and stuff. It's really cool to get it all down and hear it all said, from their own words. And so thanks.
Huge shout out to Day Franzen and Rydd for being this week's Blade Dive episode. Quick shout out to our sponsor this week. Mount Bachelor is the sponsor for episode 34. I was so excited to have their support. And I want to bring Dustin Smith back on quickly just to talk about his operations jobs that he's hiring for. Dustin, hey, quick reminder, tell everybody what you're hiring for and where they can find those jobs.
Yeah, man, right on. We have some terrain park operator positions open. Grooming is looking to finish up their hiring, and we're looking for a few day crew applicants as well to finish off that crew. I would go www.mountbachelor.com. There's a little employment icon you click on, and you'll find all the jobs that we got open. Check it out.
You heard him, and if you'd like to apply for a job at Mount Bachelor, you can find those jobs at mtbachelor.com. All right. You know the deal. Don't be a dick. Please fill your machine with diesel at the end of your shift.